Okay, so I think we're firing on all cylinders now. Um,
Right.
so it's
Okay.
great to get to speak to you, Sandy. So I'll just introduce you for everybody who'll be watching this. So you're Sandy Edwards, and you're a
Yes.
spiritual healer. And I've got to say, you're a bit of a pioneer, really, especially in the UK. And we're going to talk about your book, and we're going to put a link to your book as well. And if people want to get in touch with you and ask questions, I'm sure you wouldn't mind that,
Of course. Yeah.
because it seems like it's been your purpose, really. And I know it's been a long time in the making, but life has really pushed you to bring out the benefits of healing, and the research that's been done has been in the hospital. So tell us a bit more about how your path led you to this point now.
Well, it really is. Well, looking back, it really is quite amazing how it could possibly have ever occurred. I had absolutely no sign of a natural healing ability, but I was determined to become a healer. So I trained with a non-religious UK charity, and within 10 years, I instigated this research trial, which is the biggest in the world.
Oh my God, that is amazing.
It has to be. It has to be. The researchers couldn't find anything that remotely touched this kind of quality, quantity. Um, it's amazing, really. And the hero of the whole of that part of the story is Dr. Sukhdev Singh, who was the consultant that I worked with as a volunteer healer at the hospital. But that took years to come about as well. I've been doing healing. I think I trained in '98. I think probably about 1998 when I started training.
Yeah.
And when I qualified, the thought occurred to me to open a voluntary healing group near to where I lived, and to apply for a lottery grant to pay for that,
Right.
to set up. And one thing and another, that all came to pass, and that group still is offering healing to the public even now, though I don't live in that area anymore, so I've nothing to do with the group as such. And it was one of the patients who came to the healing group years ago, and she told me that it was her consultant at hospital that had sent her to our group. Well, that is astonishing. That is astonishing. So I found out who he was from her, and I wrote a letter to him explaining what we do as much as we can. I mean, I don't even know how healing works. I just know that it does. So I gave him all kinds of information that would assure him of professional standards, and I knew of two healers already that viewers might know the names of. Ruth Kay, who works at a Leeds hospital. She was the very first healer to be paid a salary for healing in an NHS hospital. And then Dr King, who worked for University College London Hospital. And once she got into the hospital working there, she ended up organising a whole team of healers of different descriptions working there on a children's ward.
Oh.
So leukemia. And so I say leukemia, yeah, cancer ward for children, that's right.
Yeah.
So this letter that I sent to Dr. Singh, he agreed to meet. And so we liked each other from the start, I feel. He was such a lovely man. And he's such a lovely man, talking about the past.
No.
He still is a lovely man. Anyway, once the hospital gave permission, and that took a year and a half for permission from on high, I suppose because it was new and different. And so I began work at the hospital in the next room to Dr. Singh. So he would suggest to people that they might like a healing session, which must have been a big surprise to them, to have any complementary therapy, never mind being spiritual healing.
Wow.
And so most people, I think, I don't know what the numbers were for taking the offer up, but I was kept very busy. And within a few weeks, I asked Dr. Singh, I think probably the second week I was there, hearing all the lovely things that patients were saying, I wanted to document those findings. And I worked out a questionnaire. Dr. Singh got approval for me to be able to do that. And the information that came back from people just showed that even though people were totally skeptical, which they generally are at the hospital, these are long-term ill people, and they were highly skeptical that it could do anything for them, and yet the results were just as good as at the healing group, where people expect to have something
They've
positive
come with that intention. Yes.
Yeah, they've already got the mindset to fall in with what you're doing. But at the hospital, many of them had never heard of spiritual healing before. Many of them, nearly everybody hadn't had any complementary therapy of any sort before.
Wow.
So that doesn't match up with the government figures that 2 in 5 or 1 in 3 people have had. It was nothing like those numbers. So that makes me think, well, maybe people who are seeing a consultant are less likely to go to a complementary therapy person. So maybe that's why they're suffering longer. I don't know. But that would be worth a bit of investigation, I think.
Well,
I mentioned that in my book.
Wouldn't it be amazing if they could, if every GP and, you know, every doctor's had complementary therapists there?
Yes,
yes. It would.
I do believe that all complementary therapists and doctors and nurses and anyone caring for anyone else is using a healing capacity within themselves. But the important thing really is to train to use that in the most effective and efficient way, so that it's a win-win situation for both. Because very often, and I've still made the mistake myself, of giving away my own energy when I'm wanting to help someone, instead of channeling the energy that I believe is throughout the universe and passing it on to that person that I'm with. Say if I'm visiting a family friend or a friend of my own who's not well, I might not remember to do the pre-work that makes sure that you're channeling energy rather than using your own. So I have at times gone to see somebody and found that I'm wiped out and they're buzzing by the time I've left. So when those things occur to anybody, they have to know they are using their own energy.
It's such a good point, Sandy, and I'm glad you brought it up, because probably one of the biggest questions I get sent to me about healing is, how do I protect my own energy? That's one of the biggest thing, and I think that's one of the biggest thing healers have a problem with, is that
they shouldn't be trained properly. They shouldn't ever.
Is that they feel that maybe energetically they're taking on other people's problems, or their emotions are probably getting affected, and
definitely if they're not trained properly.
Yeah.
That is or I know a lot of healers who've been trained properly, but they forget to do that.
Yeah, and it is an intention, isn't it? I know that I used to forget to do it.
Yes, I think everybody must do at times when it's it says a little sign on my screen here, your internet connection is unstable and your the vision of you altered a little bit, but should we just forge ahead anyway?
Yeah, it'll be fine.
Okay. So yes, the training, I was trained with the Healing Trust, which used to be called the National Federation of Spiritual Healers, far too the name, and then the words don't mean anything anymore. Anyway. So the Healing Trust gives people an idea of what we're about. And in that training, it's first of all to protect your own energy and to attune yourself to the healing energies. I just do what they told me. And then when giving healing, it isn't to fix that arm or to fix that backache or to take away the headache. It's only to deliver healing energy. What happens then?
Yes.
It's up to the I don't know, the universe, God, I don't know what it's up to, but it's nothing to do with me. Exactly. It's not my ego involved.
But I trained with them myself, and I can't remember if it was that, because I've trained in a few different things, but maybe it was then, because I remember that they say, do not interfere with the healing by thinking that, okay, your thoughts, I go, oh, please make this person better, or please fix their arm, because it could not be that that's what needs to be healed actually. So step out the way, be that vessel, and let them take what they need, as we know that they will. So
Yes.
what are your thoughts around healing? I really do. I like science, but I know science is limited. I prefer experience, and I've had
Yeah.
a lot of many experiences of my own that could not ever be explained by science. But
Yeah.
I'm interested in science research, and thankfully there is more being done. We know it's all money dependent, and a lot can be biased, but there is more being done, because it just seems to be that the world is wanting to know more about the universe, about what we're made from, and what is this energy that people talk about. What would you say? You know, I know it's still a bit of a phenomenon, but the work of Dr. Fitzalbert Pop with biophotons and things like that, that explains how we're all light beings, that we've got these light emissions. Every living organism, plants, animals, they all emit light. And Dr. Valerie Hunt with aura, she could see the auras on her film. How the hell does it work from one person to another?
I know, it totally bewilders me. And there's no real point in surmising. It's lovely to chat about that between ourselves, but to convince anybody to get this into the NHS, or to get doctors to, or scientists to even look at the data, we do need to have rigorous research, and that's what this particular research trial that I was involved in is. And when you said bias is involved, that was another wonderful thing about having a top UK university leading this research, that really wouldn't want to have their name associated with spiritual healing. So it has to be unbiased, it has to be top dollar research that nobody can easily pull apart and say that wasn't done well. They don't do that research at the University of Birmingham. It really is the cream of universities throughout the world. So that is amazing in itself. But it was Dr. Singh who got them on board.
Wow.
And there would have been detractors, I'm quite sure, but it worked, it went through. And did I say that the lottery funded the whole exercise? So that was £205,000, another mysterious event that occurred, really miraculous, I would say, because I'd only been at the hospital for 2 months thereabouts, and that was when the lottery announced this research funding, which they said they would never do again. They've never done before, one-off only. And I learnt of it the morning that they announced it through another member of the same healing organisation in another part of the country, who I've never met. But I don't know why she emailed me with the information, but she did. And I went into Dr. Singh, and he put the parties together. By now he'd seen tons of evidence from his patients, and he'd seen some really very startling things occur with his patients. You can have a million different observations like that, but they don't count for science. So you have to have a rigorous research trial that's run properly. And so with this possibility of grant money, he approached the different parties involved, which was the NHS to use their patients and their facilities, the university to lead it, and then it had to be applied for by a charity, and he was trustee of a medical charity in Birmingham, and so that was all of the players necessary. And they put in must have been a fantastic application, because we got the money, and there were 800 applicants, I think it was. There were only going to be I might have those numbers wrong, but it was like every charity in Britain was applying for this money. Must have. There were, every meeting I went to go and find out more detail as to what we should put on our application, to apply. There were hundreds of people at these meetings. So yes, it was fantastic to have got that money. And those questionnaires that I did, those were necessary as well, as it happened, to give evidence that people wanted this and that it was beneficial to people. So all of these things, just one after another, little block, gave what was necessary for this application to go through. And And the researchers were impressed by how many patients were approached to be part of the trial, and that they agreed. Normally, the hit rate is a lot less.
Right.
But I suppose if you were trying medication, you'd be more concerned. Whereas how could this hurt anybody?
That's it. Yeah, do no harm. Yeah.
Yes. So the hit rate was really great, the take-up rate of people approached. And then once people had their first healing session, there were 5 sessions that they were to have, 5, 1 a week. And once they had their first healing session, hardly anybody, in comparison to other research trials, hardly anybody dropped out of the system. Hardly any dropped out of the whole program.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah.
As well, really. The 200 people were involved in this trial, and because it was, and these are all long-term ill people.
Right.
Some people had been ill for over 10 years.
Wow.
I think in the 200, the longest that someone had been since diagnosis, this is, so it isn't how long they've been ill. You can be ill with something and
ages.
These are embarrassing things that people are ill with on this trial. It's IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, and IBD, inflammatory bowel disease. So both of those have horrible, debilitating, embarrassing problems associated with them. So people don't want to go to their doctor at all. They try everything else first. So then once they go to the doctor, it might take a while before you get to the consultant. Then it might take a while before you get diagnosed properly. So it's only from diagnosis that those illness times are recorded from. So the least that anybody had been ill was 1.5 years since diagnosis. That's a long time to suffer. And they know, all of these people know that there isn't a medical cure for either of those conditions that were in the trial. So what have they got to lose?
Exactly.
But having said that, all of the people that were involved in that trial, even though they benefited, and they know they benefited, we know they benefited from the figures, but they wouldn't go to out of the NHS because it would be too scary for them.
They wouldn't go where? Sorry, you just broke up slightly.
They wouldn't go to a healing group like the one I set up in locally. So there were local options for them to go to that were free or almost free, but they wouldn't go because it wasn't in the hospital. They would only go if it was at the hospital or their doctor's surgery. So this is why we need to get healing into the NHS, because so many more people would benefit.
That's really interesting. A lot of the research that's been done by Dr. Bruce Lipton, I don't know if you've heard of him, Biology of the Loop, he says the environment has a lot to do with the inner state of health and the cells, etc. So when you said that, that just reminded me of the environment conditions being safe for somebody to experience that healing at its most highest potential for the client. In another environment where they might not feel so safe and secure, and maybe they were closed down, who knows? But it's really interesting you say that.
You just broke up there. But the crux of that, I think, is the fear within them that stops them even trying. That's where the illness is really stemming from, in my view. That's where we all know we get the word disease from, dis-ease, not at ease. So if we have fear, we should just feel the fear and do it anyway. But those people just can't, won't. And so that's where the issue is. But if they have healing, it might dissolve some of those fears. In fact, there are some lovely stories that I have in my book about people who told me. These are ones from the hospital and other people, but the ones at the hospital are the ones who I'm talking about now with this inner fear. Everybody's got some fear, but why not? I just can't understand why people who have tried healing can see the benefit. They know they've benefited greatly, yet they won't go to a healing group just locally. Why wouldn't they do that? But they don't.
See, that would fascinate me. That would see. I love that, and that's how I work with clients. I just am so fascinated by the human conditioning and the beliefs and the stories and the experiences people have had, because we all know the mind-body connection now. It's obviously interlinked. All the cells and all the hormones are all over the body. They're not separate from mind and body. And we know the stomach is the enteric, carries the same nervous system.
That's why this research is so vital for people who are ill with almost anything, because it's been said for, well, thousands of years, it's been said that all illness begins in the stomach. Well, it doesn't all, probably, but a great deal does.
Yeah.
And I've covered that in my book as well. And because so much begins in the stomach, this research is relevant to almost everybody. Well, I think it's relevant to everybody, of course. But even if you only went by illnesses, then it's relevant to a lot of sick people, a huge amount, not just people with directly stomach problems.
No, it's so interesting, because if it's healing a particular part of the body, they say our body is is like a hologram. Every part of a hologram contains the whole. So as acupuncture works and reflexology works the same way. I just watched something yesterday, and I can't remember the doctor's name, but they did some brain scans to see which area of the brain lit up, and they put a light in the eye, and it took, let's say, 7 seconds for the area of the brain, the visual cortex of the brain, to show it was seeing the light. They shone the same light on the meridian point on the toe, and it acted like that. It was so much quicker than shining the light in the eye. They shone it on the meridian point of the toe, and the brain, the visual cortex of the brain, up in a split second.
That's amazing.
It's amazing how the body works. I just love it. But
on that story you have about the light in the eye, there was another piece of research, the similar kind of thing of shining the light in the eye and a part of the brain lighting up, and they had two people meditating with each other, or maybe doing healing work with each other, and then separated them, and they did the light in the eye on the one person whose brain lit up, but the other one did as well. And there are other research things like that are mentioned in my book that underpin all of the things that we're talking about.
I just love the fact, like, they say we're connected, and we can say that verbatim, but how does it work? And they say when we connect, our energies connect. You know, we stay together, basically. Our kind of DNA intertwines and our photons intertwine, and what happens to one instantly happens to the other. So time doesn't even exist. It's simultaneous. It's amazing, isn't it?
That's what I try to keep in mind when I'm doing healing. Instead of thinking of how can this possibly work, which kind of makes us think. Because when you go to see somebody who you think, there's nothing I can do for this person, for goodness sake, there's no way, but I have to delete all of those thoughts. And I just have to imagine that this person has been brought into my sphere because they are ready to take a quantum leap into wellness, harmony and joy. And when you think of the immensity of the universe and how unlikely it is that you're going to meet up with one particular person for a special healing time, what are the, there must be a reason why you've come into this small space together for a healing. They're ready.
Oh, absolutely. And, we are just made of energy. I know we look, we can see the separation or what we perceive as separation, but we are just a sea of energy. And I just think science doesn't know how the universe is here. So it doesn't know why we're here. That means to me, well, anything is possible. Anything is possible, because you can't prove that it's not possible, because no one knows what.
What I've pointed out in my book is that if you look on NASA's website, it explains that, I can't remember the numbers now, but 87% of the universe is dark matter and 27% is dark energy.
Mm.
It doesn't mean it's sinister. It just means they don't know what it is.
That's
they know it's there, though, because of the effect it has on things that we can see, measure, or whatever. So it means that there's only about 3% of everything in the universe that scientists can know anything about. So how can they be arrogant and say healing can't exist because they only know about 3% of all there is? They've already, it's written on NASA's website, they only know 3%. It doesn't matter what equipment that they have to see, feel anything. It's only 3%.
Oh,
everything that we can see here with our eyes looks like all there is, but there isn't, because you've got x-rays and you've got laboratory equipment and big telescopes and microscopes. We've got all kinds of things to see, but all of that is still only 3%.
It's amazing, isn't it? It kind of blows your mind when you start to think.
Yeah, I know.
Way.
Just does. And so I say, well, we don't know what all these energies are, but we know healing energy exists because of the effect it has, which is the same as NASA's saying.
So tell us more about the research that you did. So it was on the patients, long-term sufferers of IBS IBD. Yeah. And are they going to follow those patients on their journey now? I mean, what's happening with them? Do they still get access to healing, or?
No. Well, since that research completed, I moved away from the area. So I now live on the south coast. So there's no way that I can still volunteer to be at the hospital, which I would love to carry on doing, but it's, hours and hours drive away now. So that's not feasible. And also, since my husband retired, we've been traveling a great deal. So to make a commitment to something is a bit more tricky. So I do what I can where I am. And whenever I've got internet connection, then I'm promoting knowledge of this research. And the best way to let anybody know about the research, because the research papers were published in medical journals, but nobody reads research papers. Very few people. More people are likely to read a book. So that was why I felt I had to write a book. Excellent. It takes absolutely ages to write a book, let me tell you. If I ever say I'm going to write another book, just stop me there and then.
Or maybe I won't.
Oh, dear. Such a lot of work, tons of work. And they say that you spend more time promoting a book than you do writing it. And that probably is true. But I've been extremely lucky with different things. The BBC came and did an interview on their 6 o'clock news, not 6 o'clock the national, the local news after that. So Midlands Today it's called in the Midlands. So they came and did an interview with Dr Singh and me and a patient. And so that was a bit of coverage, but they didn't really cover how brilliant the results were of the research, but at least it was something. And different magazines, niche magazines, I've had articles in there, some of those. So there's been some progress, but I want more. Not many people are getting to hear about it, even though I've got so much into different magazines.
We want more. We need more, and I'll do what I can to
it's brilliant. Yes, I'm prepared. I'm willing to do any kind of interviews and talks and things to try and get this message across.
Yeah, and I've got lots of healers on my Facebook page, and obviously I train coaches and energy workers as well. And the more that this helps them, everybody's running a business, healing, doing their passion. Yeah. But, bring this more into the public awareness of how it can actually help, then it's good value for them as well. All us healers have a duty to push this forward. So I'll do what I can to share it.
Lovely, well done you. The thing that I'm finding with people who aren't already in the groove of healing, they don't even read the data before they say it can't possibly work and it's just hearsay. say, no, but this is actually research done by a top university. Oh yeah, but it's hearsay. No, it isn't, it's research. But the thing is, even though people consider themselves, people I know and love, who say they are scientific, they say they're scientifically minded, and that's why they say it can't possibly work. But they haven't read the data, they haven't read my book, they haven't read the research papers, and so they say they've made their mind up with no data.
It's such a shame. It's such a shame. And you know what? It really pisses me off that just educate yourself. You know, just please, like, step out of a narrow vision. Educate yourself. Make a judgment based on the information and not on predated or outdated information. Things are moving forward, and I really think people need to switch on. Don't get me wrong, it's all right for me to say, because I love it, so I will absorb it every day, all day, but it's not like that for everybody. But there's a great lady, Candice Pert, and she's written a book called Molecules of Emotion, and what she says in her research is that every cell, every organ has a receptor that binds to a drug. Now, drugs can only be effective if we already carry the receptor in our body, meaning that we can create that chemical reaction ourselves. Do we need the drug? Basically, because it has to already be present in our body to be effective. So in a way, I think it's about teaching people how to create their own endorphins, to create their own healing, their own stimuli that supports and heals their body. It's possible. If it was never possible, then the placebo effect and spontaneous healing just would not exist. It just wouldn't exist if it were not possible. And if it's possible for one person on this planet, it's possible for everyone, because we're all the frickin' same. We're all made of the same stuff.
That's what I've made those very same points in my book, and I've given examples of particular people who have experienced exactly that, whether it's mental problems or physical problems or emotional problems. Those people were at death's door, and yet they made a miraculous recovery. And they went forward with that knowledge to go and tell the world about it in their books and talks. And those people are really so courageous, because they probably didn't believe in healing or that ability of the body in the first place. But sometimes I know people who've had a miraculous meeting me really, because they don't want to be reminded of that awful time in their life. It is a worry to some people that it could come back. Whatever it was that they had the matter could come back. So I'm a reminder to some people that they had that thing at all. So I have
funny, isn't it? Because the word healing or healer has just got this really horrible connotation for some people, but they wouldn't think nothing of saying, oh, I've cut myself or broken a leg and I'm waiting for it to heal. So heal is a natural process that we know our body goes through without us really having to do anything. It's so innate, it's so inbuilt in our system that we are built to heal ourselves naturally. If I cut my skin, I just wait and it heals. If you break a bone, you wait, it heals. You know, so it's funny, and I do believe it stems back to religion and the slant that people take on healing.
Yes.
So
I've in my book as well about how religion has mucked it all up, because we did used to do a lot of healing in Britain and everywhere else until the Christians got hold of it. I've got a lot of time for Christianity and every other religion, and I've covered that in my book as well, as to how come the baby got thrown out with the bathwater with some of the things that the Christians brought in, and the Muslims as well have not done all they can with the healing thing, but healing actually is a common ground for all religions, and people of no religion and people of no faith in anything. It is a common link that people can have, and people do like to find things that they have in common with others, and that would be something that breaks those barriers, if there are any, for some people. So I know that healing is a fundamental part of all indigenous tribes all around the world. There's a long history going back.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I'm sure we could talk all day about this subject, but
yes, I could.
Yeah. The benefit of people watching, just what were the highlights of some of the research on the patients? So you say they got better. Just what were some of the highlights so people really embed what we're talking about here?
The people who were on the research trial, it's all numbers on the research trial, and there were 3 different questionnaires that each person had to complete, and the 100 people didn't have they were randomized, but 100 people didn't have healing to begin with. They had to wait for 3 months, so that the people who, so there was a comparison. Normally when you're running a randomized controlled trial, there's a placebo group as well, but you can't do a placebo for healing. But you can't do a placebo for other things as well, which are accepted in the NHS.
Oh, right.
Like physiotherapy. You either are having physiotherapy or you're not having it.
Okay.
You're either having surgery or you're not having surgery.
Right.
So there isn't, actually there are some placebo ones in the States that that I've put in my book as well. But there are a lot of things in the NHS that you can't do a placebo for. And you can't do one for healing. You're either having the healing routine or you're not. And if you're having a randomized controlled trial, nobody is to know who's having the placebo. Well, if you were to have a sham healer, that sham healer knows who is having the real thing, who's not. So do the healers, and so do the people who allotted those sham real healing. So it can't work. It can't work. So it is accepted when doing research for complementary therapies that instead they have these 2 groups where one does have the therapy and one doesn't, and then compare those. And all of these people on our research trial continued with whatever their normal orthodox medication or treatment was. They carried on as normal. You couldn't really withhold anything from people. You would just carry on as normal. And so the difference is amazing between those who did and those who didn't. And then the ones who had waited for 3 months, who then started their healing sessions, they leapt up to the same levels as the ones who began 3 months before. They followed the same pattern.
Over the same amount of time, the 5 sessions.
So the ones who had, the first 100 had theirs immediately. The other 100 waited 3 months, and then they started their series of 5 sessions. And their response mirrored those of the first. So it's like a double confirmation. And the ones who started first, there was a longer time then to be able to see how long the benefits lasted for. And they did. The benefits were long lasting. It was over 24 months total. So that was 6 months. And they'd only had 5 sessions. And not all of them had all 5 sessions either. And the researchers could see that the people who had all 5 sessions benefited more than the ones who didn't manage to get all 5 sessions in.
Wow.
So that showed that every session made a difference.
Wow, that's so good. So
I know, there are lots more bits and bobs to tell you about of those benefits that people had. One of them is one of the questionnaires. Everybody did the same questionnaire for the one, and that one was to see if lives were improved. It didn't concentrate on the particular ailment. So this particular questionnaire was devised by a British doctor, a GP, Charlotte Patterson, who wanted to know that anything she gave her patients helped them. Didn't matter that it helped the particular ailment they came with, but she wanted them to benefit completely.
Mm-hmm.
So their lives would be improved.
Yeah.
So this questionnaire checks that, finds out whether people have improved. And if it gains 1 point improvement, that means the patient has a whole point, means that the patient would be able to notice that difference.
Okay.
And across the board for the IBS and for the IBD people, they all gained by a whole point in 6 weeks, was it? I can't remember now the detail, but they went up by 1 point in 6 weeks, and they went up by another point after they had the end of their healing session. So after they finished their healing sessions, they continued to improve by another whole point. So that's amazing as well, that the healing continued. This is wonderful.
It is.
We don't necessarily find out ourselves as healers, but when we're healers, much the same as it must be for a doctor, nobody goes back to their doctor for an appointment to tell them that they're all right now. Thanks very much. But they don't do that with healers either.
They go when they're sick. Yeah.
So this is again where healers just have to have the total confidence that what they're doing is good, beneficial, going to make a big difference to that person every time that they do a healing session, whether it's a distant one or present with them. So that was astonishing and wonderful to see in black and white that people are continuing to benefit after the healing sessions. And there is other research, lots of research is mentioned in my book, and much of it shows that people who are affected the worst are the ones that benefit the most from healing. And the worst, I would imagine that the very worst cases of the people that we saw were people with Crohn's disease. Crohn's is awful. It's horrible things going on from the throat all the way through, and those people really suffer. And there's a questionnaire that they completed, and there is an improvement of the score, that if it gets beyond that point, it shows that they're in remission. And it was only a very small number of people that had Crohn's in the whole program. I think it was 24, which is too small for research people to say, yes, that really has meaning. But for those 24 people, it will have meaning, because that particular group, they hit the remission figures.
Oh, wow.
They broke through the level for remission. So that's amazing.
That is amazing. Well done, Sandy. That is just fantastic. Just to be able to help those people in that way and to improve their lives. You know, if somebody's health is being taken care of, they're starting to feel better, their immune system might be on the up, you know.
Yes, it is. Yes, definitely linked. Definitely.
Sleep, you know, their energy levels will be increasing. Yeah, you know, their performance in life, their relationships, everything is going to improve. So it's just that saying a whole new lease of life, you know, comes in. Without our health, nothing, you know, we really do suffer when we go into poor health. And I totally believe your health is so interlinked with your emotional well-being as well. So thanks so much for all of this information. And
there's loads more, but people will have to read the book, I expect.
No, well, we will get people to read the book. I'm going to send out a newsletter, and I'll fire this everywhere on social media. And yeah, and we'll get a link to your book, and we'll push it as much as we can, and possibly we will get you on again to speak to you. Maybe we could do some lives or whatever, and we can talk about healing because I just love it. And it's been an absolute pleasure. I'd love to meet you in person. I wish we were closer to give you a big hug.
I'm in Spain at the moment, so
don't make me jealous. Well, it's been the
inside of my little caravan.
Oh, look at you! Love it. Well, I'm going to press end now, so just let me do that, and we can keep on chatting. I think.